afternoon, my friends. My name is Paulo Machado. It's a great pleasure to be here with you this afternoon. Wow. So I'm speaking on behalf of Disal and Cambridge University Press, and it's really a great pleasure to be here. We're just starting up. I can see we have some people from other countries. Probably we have some Latin American friends, fellow teachers here with us. This is so cool, besides Brazilians. And well, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Paulo Machado. You can call me Padu. That's the way my friends call me. That's my nickname, Padu Machado. I've been a teacher for like 25 years, yes, and nowadays I'm really interested in working with textbooks and teaching material. So I've been also a writer, an editor, and I had the pleasure to be invited by Cambridge University Press to do this webinar with you, and also to be part of this great team of specialists who have written this brand new series called Game Changer, which is for teenagers, right? And this is such a great responsibility to talk to these people, to interact with these teens in such a peculiar time that we're going through, right? It seems like things are hard, but we need to think that in hard times, we need to have bold ideas and we need to have bold solutions. And I think this is what together we, as teachers, interacting with our English students, we can do in this world. So thank you very much for being here. It's really, really, really a pleasure. If you have questions, you can write on the chat. Yes, we can communicate via chat. It's on my left here, so sometimes I'm going to look to my second monitor, but most of the times I'm going to be looking right here straight at you. I'm going to share it's a presentation with you, so I'm just going to start sharing my screen, if you allow me, okay? Here it is. That's it. So the name of our talk today is Changing the Game, Building Identity to Express the World Through English. Yes? So we'll be addressing this topic of identity, but also we'll be addressing some other topics to underlie that. So our agenda today is going to include, first of all, the BNCC. For those who are Brazilian students and Brazilian teachers, you might be more, in contact with the BNCC and know already. After all, you are supposed to be using the BNCC to design your curricula already, so you probably know about it. For those who are from other Latin American countries or even from other countries who are not, which are not Brazil, this is going to just underline our work from the beginning, and we step from there. So don't worry if you don't know too much about the BNCC, and you are going to see too that the BNCC also has points in contact with your curricula and with your national educational policies, right? So after addressing the BNCC, we're going to speak a little bit, exchange ideas about competencies, and then go on to the realm of identity, critical thinking, and then finally, we're going to use all that to bring about some examples from this brand new series called Game Changer. All right? So let's go. We'll start from here. And I can say, look, like I said, I've been teaching English for more than 25 years now. And when I started teaching English in regular schools, back in the 90s, was like 1994. I was in the extreme south of Bahia State, in a very tiny town named Mucuri. I don't know if you know this town in Bahia, called Mucuri. I was a teacher there in the beginning of my teaching career. And well, the design of curricula at that time for regular schools was pretty much based on our own personal representations, our own teachers' ideas of what a curriculum should look like and what we should do in the design of our courses, right? So we would design our curriculum much based on our experiences, and sometimes we would even use like a scope and sequence of a textbook, and we would just follow, we would just follow that textbook scope and sequence, and that's what our course would be, right? But then, what was the result of that? I mean, we live in such a diverse and big country. So in different parts of the country, or even in different schools in the same street, based on the teacher's beliefs, students would have very different opportunities. I mean, there was no common ground for the design of curricula in Brazil. And then and this is started, starting from the 90s, we started having all these official documents thinking about the bold objectives of our education. And that, as a result of that, that's when the BNCC came about. So we can say that the BNCC is the official document by the Brazilian state. So it's not a government document, it's a state document having the force of law that defines and assures the essential learnings and the integral development of Brazilian students. That's what defines what Brazilian students need to learn. And they are based, the BNCC is based on the general competences of basic education. Well, that's interesting because we have some keywords there that we need to pay attention to, right? So we have essential learnings, integral development, and general competences. So we have a program of curricula based on competences. And that's what says the PNE, the Plano Nacional de Educação, the National Plan of Education, which is in the first paragraph of the first chapter of the LDB, Lei de Diretrizes e Bases da Educação Nacional. So it has the force of law. The BNCC was developed through the 90s and the year 2000, and finally it was published in 2017. And by 2020, all schools were supposed to be using the BNCC to design their curricula, right? Well, but this reminds me of this picture. This is an interesting picture. We have a ground there. We have a ground of pebbles. In my opinion, they're beautiful. They're all shiny, yes, and they're very polished because probably it's on a lake shore or on an ocean shore or something. And this is a good metaphor for what the BNCC brings to us in terms of curricula. What happens is the competences when designing curricula are common. The guidelines, yes, the foundation of curricula design is common all over the country, but the curricula are diverse, right? Because they're based on our particular environment, yes, in the peculiarities of the environment we are teaching. It depends on the PPP, on the political and pedagogical project of your school. And that's what you're going to use to design your curricula. But the guidelines, and the competencies must be common for everyone. And this is interesting. Of course, this didn't start in Brazil, right? Since the 90s, all through the second half of the 20th century, there was a movement from the international agencies, yes, to recommend the implementation of education or in educational policies based on competences, right? And this was, to make even, to eliminate differences, yes, disparities in the level of education that people would reach all over the world. And it was an attempt to try to have a common ground for education in the world, aiming at a global citizenship. Okay, guys? So, one question that comes to your mind when we talk about, a global movement in terms of competencies underlying the process of education, we need to know what competency is. Competency or competence, they're, synonyms. So according to the BNCC, the Base Nacional Comum Curricular, what is competence? You can write on the chat, okay, if you want to give your ideas, right? What is competency? Well, competency needs to be something practical. It's something applied into reality, right? So, competency is the application of knowledge, which include concepts and procedures, of skills. It's the application of attitudes, values, beliefs into what? Into our daily life, right? Aiming at a global citizenship and aiming at the world of work, right? So when we talk about globalization, we see that this really makes sense. Yes, and we see why aiming at common policies worldwide makes sense. So competency is the application of knowledge and of skills. So being competent is being able to activate and use the built knowledge, the knowledge that you built, right? When facing a situation or a problem, which is in real life. So far, so good? Well, why teach based on competencies? That's a good question, too. Once we have defined competence, which is the application of knowledge, skills, values, and attitudes, it's important to know, well, okay, very nice, but why? Why should I do that? Well, according to the BNCC, we should do that because we want to change society. Yes, we want to foster transformation of society into a society which is increasingly fair, increasingly democratic, inclusive, diverse, and sustainable, environmentally and socially speaking, right? And we want to prepare our students to be a global citizen. This according to the BNCC. But we also have what we call the Cambridge Life Competencies Framework, which is also a document, stemming from this international movement of having educational policies based on competencies. So we do have this document in Cambridge too. And the Cambridge Life Competencies Framework says that we need to teach based on competencies because we need to work together with people. Yes, we need to think creative. We need to solve problems, analyze, be critical about things, and communicate our views in an effective way, right? all in all, to maintain a positive mindset. Look, we want a better world, right? We as teachers, as English teachers, as language teachers, my opinion, I believe it's your opinion too, we do much more than language. Yeah, we want to make an impact in the world. That's our mission, and we do that. So having this in mind will start to, to make sense when you think about teaching based on competences, right? So very good. Looking at this picture, what the conclusion I get is that all the aspects of teaching, the pedagogical aspects of teaching, the ethical aspects of teaching, the political aspects of teaching, they're all blended, intertwined. Yes, we don't teach, as we said, we don't teach just language. We teach people, we teach human beings. Yes, there's discourse involved in teaching, and every discourse is from a standpoint. Every discourse is from a point of view. Yes, there's always an axiologic, a valorative perspective about things when we are teaching. So all these aspects are intertwined. And this is interesting. Look, teaching based on competences from the BNCC side and from the Cambridge Life Competencies Framework side. That's interesting because both these documents, yes, the Brazilian official documents that underlies the design of curriculum and the Cambridge Life Competencies Framework, which underlies the design of all Cambridge materials from now on, both of them have 6 specific competences. And on the side of BNCC, for the teaching of English, we have 6 competences. The first one being, identifying one's place in this world. And this, makes up one's identity. Communicating several media, yes, several audio, verbal, visual. Understanding that language, culture, and identity are connected. Building repertoires in this world, not only practicing our receptive skills, but building our repertoires, making our voice resound in this world. Use new technologies ethically and responsibly. Think about what we're going through today in terms of fake news, and think about the importance of this. And access diverse cultural heritages. Sorry, people, sometimes I'm going to have to, take a sip of water, all right? So please forgive me. So this on the side of the BNCC. On the side of the Cambridge Life Framework, well, what we have in terms of competencies: creative thinking, critical thinking, learning to learn, communication, collaborate. So there are social skills involved there, you see, and social responsibilities. Of course, there are 6 in each side. I could easily make connections between them, right? So these are some connections that I designed, but you could design many other connections between those. Yes. So this is just to exemplify to you, just to illustrate that our teaching English based on competencies has a solid foundation, right? And we need to start thinking about this from now on. Yeah. From these competencies, from this, chart that I showed you, 2 elements really draw my attention. 2 very important elements. I would call them identity. Yes, when I need to identify my position in the world, that's the first competency for the BNCC for the English speaking. And on the other side, I would highlight, pick out critical thinking. So from now on, we will be working on these two concepts together: identity and critical thinking, right? When we go back to the BNCC, the number one competence for languages, we need to remember that the language area in the BNCC encompasses Portuguese, English, arts, and physical education. So according to the BNCC, these are languages, even if we don't agree with it. Yes, personally, I question this, but that's the way it is there. Right? For me, for example, art is more than a language. It's not really a language. Art is an area in itself. But it doesn't matter. In the area of languages, the number one competence is understand language as a human construct. Historical, social, cultural, and dynamic. Value languages as way of signifying, this is a competence, the act of valuing languages, as way of signifying reality. So we make sense of reality through language. And as the expression of subjectivity and of social and cultural identities. So please observe the pivotal aspect of identity in terms of the first competence of the BNCC, right? Because we are mentioning subjectivity, social, and cultural identities. Wow, but what is identity? That's a good question. Isn't it? Wow. So, identity can be considered to be the answer to this question, right? Who am I? It's more than your ID, more than your document. Identity is the answer to this question. So it involves three aspects, three spheres. First of all, self-identity, which is the way I see myself. Yeah, and the conception I have about my own person and about how my person relates with the world. Yeah, so it's my individual relationship with the outside, let's say. And then we have something called social identity, which is the way other people see us. It has to do with our roles, in the plural, in society. Yes, it has to do with our professions. Yes, or the place we take in the social relationship. That's social identity. It has a lot to do with the way others see us. And then we have the realm of cultural identity, which is belonging to a group, right? A nationality, okay? The religion, right? Uh, the groups you belong to, the language you speak to, yes? Your family circle, your friendship circle, and the language you speak to. Look, and this is so interesting because, as you can see, identity is then dynamic. Because if cultural identity has to do with the language I speak, and if I learn languages, I'm saying that I can expand the notion of my identity and I can transform the notion of my identity, right? That's so interesting. So we have a quote here from Claude Dubar, French sociologist, who says, human identity is not given once and for all in the act of birth. It is built in childhood and must always be rebuilt throughout life. The individual never builds an identity alone. One depends as much on the judgments of others, he's mentioning social identity there, as on one's own orientation, so self-identity and self-definitions. Thus, identity is the product of successive socializations. And school is involved in that. Learning English in the educational context is included in that. This is a text I created just to exemplify that, right? It's, I don't know who I am anymore at this time of life, guys, to tell you the truth, because when shopping online, I'm a consumer. In a restaurant, I'm a customer. At a doctor's, I'm a patient. At school, I'm either a teacher or a student. When I travel, I'm a tourist. And when I'm on the street, I'm either a pedestrian, a rider, a biker, a driver. If I got a book, I'm a reader. On Instagram, I don't know about you, but me, mostly, I'm a follower. You might be an influencer, right? In this talk, I'm a speaker, and you are the audience. Wow. And I was once silly enough to think I was the one. So as you can see, this is so dynamic. So identity involves the self, the social, and the cultural dimensions of life. And why should we bring this to class? I mean, my question to you is it important to bring up the topic of identity and to help students build their identity? Can we do that as educators and as language teachers? Well, first of all, I'd like to say that identity is a place in the world where you make sense of things. Yes. And from where you can cause an impact in the world through discourse and through actions. You need to know who you are. So the sense of identity, having a strong sense of identity, you may decide and you may focus on what really matters to you. You start making choices in life. I used to teach, I taught for many years. I don't do that anymore. I taught for many years in prep courses. Yeah, I think I worked on that realm 10 years. For 10 years, I taught kids, adolescents, to prepare for their English exams. In Brazil, we have something called vestibular and Enem. So I prepared students for that. And what I observed and what I always talked to my students was, look, let's suppose you're trying out for a very difficult course, like, medical school or law school. It's tough. It's difficult. Yes, but there is a way. There is a way, step by step, and you are eventually going to get there. Of course, if you don't give up, but you're going to eventually get there. But first, you need to know where you want to get. Yes, you need to know yourself and you need to have your own objectives. Otherwise, you're not going to get there. So this is related to identity. And of course, people in our country, working on identity is a powerful way to address, to deal with, to tackle the issue of historic inequities in education. Yes. Respecting diversity. Yes. That not only respecting, but valuing diversity, because diversity, differences, different opinions, conflict, this all makes us richer. Yes, as a nation, as an individual, and as a country. Well, too much for the number one specific skill for languages. Let's now tackle specific skill number 4, specific competency, for languages in the BNCC. It's to use languages to express points of view that respect others and promote human rights, social emotional awareness, responsible consumption in local, regional, and global contexts, acting critically in face of the world's contemporary issues. So, first of all, my student needs to develop their identity, his or her identity. Develop that. Remember that this is an ongoing process, but on developing identity, I have a standpoint from where to observe and make sense of the world, and from there, analyze the world critically. First, I need to think and analyze, think and feel, so then I can make decisions and act upon reality. So, for acting critically, do you agree with me that saying that acting critically in face of the world's issues, well, to act critically, I first need to make sense of it critically. So I need to think critically. So we get to the topic of critical thinking. All right? Does that all make sense to you? I hope so, guys. Please tell me, well, the problem is we and our students are trying to change, but the vestibular didn't yet. Yes, yes, yes. We have to think about our everyday practice. Yes, the difference we make in our students' life, right? So what is critical thinking? Well, this, people, is according to the Cambridge Life Competencies framework. Okay, this definition that I'm going to give you right now. So what is critical thinking? Is understanding and analyzing ideas, is evaluating ideas, and solving problems and making decisions, right? So we need to, first of all, understand. After we understand, we need to evaluate, yes? And then we need to apply. That's really great. There are three topics that overlap when we talk about critical thinking. One of them, because there are many, many, many definitions of critical thinking all around. So I got some for you, and we can make our own sense of this. But there are three topics that overlap when we are thinking about critical thinking. First one is reflective thinking, which is the habit of questioning our own assumptions and inquiring about this, having this habit of reflect, of self-questioning. Yeah, so we bring Dewey. The second one is rational thinking, which is, follow arguments. That's very concrete. Follow arguments, be disciplined. Yes, go step by step, be very logical. This has to do with the development of science, yes, in the 19th century. So the logic of things, yeah? And then thinking rationally about what to think and what to believe, yes? So analyzing sources, yes? Checking information. There's always analyzing sources and checking information. This has to do a lot with rational thinking. And think about the importance of this. And then reasonable thinking, yeah, which is focused on deciding what to believe. So what should I believe? What should I not believe? And please observe how this reasonable thinking has to do with identity, has to do with the concepts that are being formed about reality on my mind. Yes? Because what's reasonable for me may not be reasonable for you, but we may get to a consensus about that. So critical thinking is basically a mindset that involves thinking reflectively, rationally, and reasonably, right? Well, and why, this question couldn't be missed, why bring critical thinking to class? Can you just think about 30 seconds about this? Why is this important? Why are you talking about this, Paulo? Well, first of all, like my friend here said, who is that? Miss Fran Magalhães. Yes, Miss Fran Magalhães Monteiro said here in the chat, well, we need to be, practicing for exams. Well, we need to spend less time training students for tests of knowledge. We need to spend more time stimulating them to think for themselves because they have a very challenging reality, yes, around and inside them. So they need to, you know, they need to think autonomously, yes, and do not believe in everything they say, and be able to distinguish fact from opinion, yes, be able to distinguish what really matters and what is just noise. Secondly, it's good for learners to develop an awareness and empathy by noticing, understanding, and managing different points of view. My fellow colleagues, my friends, teachers, tell me if we have or if we don't have problems in this world, in this current society, in accepting, understanding different and respecting different points of view. Think about the importance of this. This is no, this is no shallow subject. This is something that has a concrete impact in our lives. And we need to bring school, bring education, bring language teaching to reality, to making a difference in this world. Finally, yes, we live in an age of misinformation. So only the critically minded can avoid manipulation, or it's a strong word, slavish conformity. Yes, we need to analyze sources. We need to tell facts from opinions. We need to have a critical standpoint. And besides that, we need to develop our empathy. We need to develop our collaboration. We need to develop our group work, our social responsibility, our environmental responsibility. So all of this has to do with identity development and with critical thinking. All right? So thinking of all this, having all this in mind, Cambridge University Press has, in the last few years, been developing a new textbook series for Ensino Fundamental final years in Brazil. I had the pleasure to be part of the team. It's really been an honor, and I would like to bring some examples now from this new textbook series to illustrate what we have been speaking so far. So the name of this series, it's a 4-volume series. It's Game Changer, right? And with that, Cambridge University Press really plans to be a game changer. I mean, to change the game in the way we do things in our Ensino Fundamental final years class, right? So, without further ado, let's bring some examples. Remember, our objective here is to illustrate with examples from Game Changer the development of identity and critical thinking. These two competences, these two so valued and so necessary competences for our teaching and our learning. All right? So the first example comes from, well, it's book starter, right? It's Unit 5. It talks about daily habits. And well, we have this image. We have this image as a chapter opener, as a unit opener. Unit opener, we use unit openers currently. We use unit openers to raise awareness, yes, to activate schemata. Usually that's what you do in unit openers, and anticipation. So you anticipate what's going to be in the chapter, and you bring all previous knowledge, you raise awareness from your students. So we have this in Unit 5, and there's this picture of this girl, right? So I will do some picture talk there. In picture talk, what do you think you could talk about about this picture, my friends? What do you bring up when you look at this picture? Look, you start in a new unit. You're going to talk about daily life, routines, free time activities, and you have this picture in front of you to start the unit with. Huh? So what would you do? I'm sorry, for me, it's difficult. It's difficult for me. I left. This is the reason I left Cursinho. Yes, I left Cursinho. I left the prep courses after 10 years. The pay was good, but I left it because I don't believe in the system of education where you have one person speaking and the other is listening and take notes. I believe in interaction in education. So sometimes for me, it's I'd like to be speaking with you, hearing your voices, but I know it's not possible in a context like this. But you can write to me, and well, but I would, I had a professor when I was doing my master's in applied linguistics. I loved that professor. Her name was Beth Bright, and she was a back teen specialist, but she was specialized in analyze discourse, dialogic, by using dialogism. So she always told me, look, Paulo, what you need to do when you're looking at something, and this could be done about reality to not only texts, but, well, reality is a text in itself, right? So when you're looking at texts, you need to go, first thing you do, you need to go to the concreteness of things. Yes. So I would start with the description. Yes. For example, at this level, it's level starter, students would, I would elicit colors from them. I would elicit colors from students, and then I could ask them about feelings. Yes, about states of minds. I could ask them about clothing items. Yes. And I could even ask them about personal descriptions. Yeah, she's happy, right? She's really happy. At least for me, she expresses a positive attitude about life, right? And definitely, I agree with you, Naila. Yes. So I would also ask them about her physical characteristics, about her hair, the color of her eyes, her skin, yes, the things she's wearing, like earrings, piercings, bracelets, necklaces, things like that. And also about, if it's a bilingual environment, for example, we could talk about the environment. We could talk, is it a savanna, a desert, a forest? Is she in the city? Yes. And then we could say something about what she's doing, yes, and why she's happy. Why? Always ask why, yeah, what she's doing, yeah. And then after we do this picture talk, which would be in itself very rich, we would go to this box. You see, every unit in Game Changer brings to us several think boxes. And these are just fantastic. In this case, the think box asks just two questions. One, what is important in the girl's daily routine? What is important in this girl's daily routine? Look, for us to answer to that question, look at the kind of reasoning that we need to make in our minds. Yes, if you get wow, if you refer to Bloom's taxonomy pyramid, for example, we are addressing the higher levels of thinking, which doesn't mean that the lower or the lowest levels of thinking, like observing, understanding, are less important. No, all of them have the same level of importance. But we need to be based on the ones on the ground, on the basis to be climbing the ladder in terms of thinking. Yeah. So when I think, well, what's important in this day's routine? First of all, I need to understand what she's doing. Yes. So there's a discussion there. Well, what is this girl? How am I? Look, I need to infer. Yes. I look at the picture. Information is not given to me, and I need to think what is important in this girl's routine. Actually, this girl, she lives in the Rajasthan desert in India, right? So her job, although she's happy, yes, her job is to walk kilometers every day just to fetch water, drinking water, and, for her family and for herself to quench their thirst. That's what she's doing. She's carrying water for kilometers on top of her head. So, probably, of course, uh, students will not get to that conclusion, but many of them will. Of course, it depends on their cultural background and their repertoire. Remember when we talked about accessing different repertoires and making repertoires? This is what's it all about. But if students don't get to that conclusion after some discussion, of course, many ideas are going to arise, right? And or what is she looking at, or who is she looking at? That's a good question too. Of course, teachers, you can make your own questions. Or why is she laughing? Or if she's carrying such a heavy load, why is she laughing at the camera? Is this a good thing to do? Yes. So what are her concerns? So there's no closed question for this. What is important here is the habit of questioning assumptions, yes, and challenging the way of thinking. So we could ask, well, why is that your answer? Yes. Oh, what is important in the girl's daily routine? I would say, well, water. Water is important in this girl's daily routine. Yes. But this is my idea. And the teacher may ask me, well, but why do you say that? Yes. And then I need to justify. Or the teacher could ask, how did you get to that conclusion? That's a great question to ask. Or even, well, but are there any other possibilities of answer to that question? You see how rich this is? And how this could make, how you could help by doing this, help your students build their identity. Because again, you know, I am comparing, take a look at the second question. What's important in your daily routine? So I make my identity in the face of others, right? It's dialogic too, like we discussed before, right? There are, consecutive socializations, and I need the other to make up my own identity. It's something very difficult for me to build myself. Yes, of course, I have the notion of a self identity, but without the social identity and the cultural identity, that self identity would be something hollow, which is not what we want. So you see, now you're asking people to compare their own identity, their own lifestyles, their own routine with the routine of a girl living in the resistant desert across the world. Yes, and then what we are doing, we are leading students to self-questioning. Yes, their question, that's reflective. Remember, reflective thinking. They are questioning their own assumptions. Well, what's important in my routine? Do I need to go and get water for someone? Do I take some part of my time to do something that is for my community? Look, the students at this age, they are 11, 12 years old. So they're very self-centered. Yes. So they may start thinking, wow, this girl, my goodness, she goes get water. Look, I take water for granted. I just open the tap and there's water. So this is so amazing. Yes, guys. Well, next one, and then we work on the routines. Of course, there's vocabulary development. Language is very, very controlled in Game Changer. You don't have to worry about, having language that is above level for your students. One of the things that I was mostly amazed about the way the series was developed was because Cambridge has the Cambridge corpus, right, which is organized by the CFR levels from A1 to C2. And one of the greatest concerns of the international editors for this series, we had a great editor in Mexico. He became my friend Daniel. We had great editors in Spain, Brigido and Hannah. So one of the greatest concerns of the editors of this series was to make sure language was not above level, so students would feel comfortable with the language in the book. Yes, and build up brick after brick after brick after brick in a very controlled way, but in a way that they could, use the language, and which is also great. So we always have a section, use it. You're applying what you learned, bringing it to your own reality, bringing it to your own context. So this is also developing identity. I'm using language to build my cultural identity, my social identity, and myself. The sense I have about myself, and the awareness I have about myself. So this is what you have in the section. Use it. Okay, guy, it's a great series, I must tell you. Well, going on, still the same chapter. Okay, so you can see the richness of the material. So still in the same chapter, we have this text. It's about Wei Ji. Wei Ji is a girl from Singapore. Yeah. Well, it's 4:53 already, people. We just have some few minutes left. Maybe we'll go on. If you don't mind, we'll go on from what I'm seeing over here. We'll go on still a few minutes more, okay, if you don't mind. And I thank you for that, and I apologize for that. But I'll try to be brief. Fresh Eyes, Wei Ji, she's a girl from Singapore. Well, I love this one too because, she's a student. She doesn't live in a desert. She lives in a big city. She's a student in Singapore. The thing is, school in Singapore is something very demanding. Yes, the society is very competitive, and families expect high performance from students. Yes, it's a matter of honor for families too. So she has a blog. Wei Ji has a blog. She's a photographer. On the only day it's on Sunday. She doesn't have to study, but she has this blog, and she talks about her school life. And she says to us that she gets to school before school starts so she can study math with her friends before school starts. And she can't watch series during the week because she has to study until 10 in the night. or 10 in the evening. So she studies a lot. So the question posed to our students in the think section is, well, school is such a big part of wages day. And then there's a question. Is it good to study a lot like wagey? Why? Why not? Again, I'm building my identity in face of the mirror that I have with other cultures, with other realities. Yes? And of course, this is an important fact, and maybe our students would start questioning their assumptions about what study is and what is the importance of that. Yes, should I study more maybe? Should I praise or value, you know, study habits in my own life? So, and of course, teachers, we're going to ask, well, why is that your answer? Yeah, look at how rich discussions can get in the classroom. Yeah. I like the emoji at the end of the sentence. Yes. Guys, you're amazing. You're amazing. Again, I thank you very much for being here. For me, it's a pleasure to be, you know, wow, to be sharing ideas with you. This, a sharing of ideas. This is not, I hope you understand this. This is not a lecture, okay? I'm in no position of lecturing. I'm just in a position of sharing experiences with you, right? Let me just take a look. Yeah, we just have 4 more minutes, people. I'm sorry, but I'm going to go on and skip some. Oh, this one I'm going just to mention to you one important aspect that I think, look, here, we're talking about deforestation. So we have a forum. Of course, a forum is a place to share opinions and experiences. The section in the book is across the curriculum. So across the curriculum happens after 2 chapters. In one unit or chapter, um, we have this around the world. So we have around the world in one unit, and in the other unit, we have across the curriculum, right? Which aims at transdisciplinarity, all right, or interdisciplinarity. Well, these concepts are something that we could have a webinar just about that. That would be a great idea too. And but here we were talking about deforestation, so we bring deforestation in Mexico, we bring deforestation in Borneo, in Brazil, in Uganda, and then this is where I wanted to get. Look, we have here one something that is very important. Look, talent. This is they're 12 to 13 at this age, right? So look, telling facts from opinions. It's so important that our students tell facts from opinions. Yes, in order to know what to believe and in order to select information that is relevant for them and in order to free themselves from biased, yes, and badly intentioned discourses aimed just as having them as a maneuver mass. So our students need to develop from the early age to tell facts from opinions, right? And then I'm going to this one. I especially like this one so much, guys. This, I'm very fond of this activity. Look, and I'm going to take a little more time on this with you. Take a look. This is an email. Wow, email, Padu. Give me a break. An email for teens. Well, look, genre is something very important in the BNCC. So texts need to be contextualized. We need to have the context. So if I have an email in a textbook, this needs to have a reason of existence. Yeah, so I don't know about you, but my young students, they don't use emails. My kids, I have a daughter. She only uses email. She's just entered university. I have a son, a younger son. I have a daughter. My daughter just entered university. She just uses email for official reasons. Yes. And my son, who is 11, he's not 12, but he's 11. He's going to be 11. I think he never heard. He has an email address, but just so he can log in into Roblox or Minecraft or things like that. That's why he has an email address. He doesn't use email. So in this case, I'm going to read the text with you. Okay. Look, dear Dad, I hope this, it's from me, right, to Dad. Dear Dad, I hope this finds you well. We all miss you a lot. We are safe inside. Don't worry. Mom is working from home now, and she's cooking better than ever. Grandma is fine in her apartment too. We're going to start online yoga classes together. Do you recognize the context? But how about you, Dad? Oops, sorry, your phone isn't working. Aha. At least you have your laptop, right? Ah. Is your new phone going to arrive soon? So look, there's no explicit information here, but there's so much for inference, which again is at the higher levels of thinking. Students here needs to infer all the time. Look, I need to infer. It's not explicit, but I need to infer, for example, that well, my father doesn't have a phone. Okay, so that's why he's using email, because he has his laptop, right? But why is he away? Well, when are you going to come home? I hope you have a vacation after all this. Nurses need to rest too. So look, I'm not saying, oh, my father is a nurse. No, nurses need to rest too. And your swimming practice, are you going to go back to that? You're a great swimmer, Dad. Don't stop. I'm sure about one thing. This pandemic is going to end. And I have so many plans for the future. I'm going to meet my friends every day. And we are going to go to the mall, go to the movies, play basketball, so many things. Look, she's making plans. Going to, that's the topic. Going to. School is still closed, but classes online are okay. I miss my friends. I really want to see them. Meeting online is not the same. Believe it or not, I'm certain about two things. I'll be the best student in my class. I'll be the best student in my class. That's a promise. And I won't say bad things about school ever again. That's another promise. Dad, I changed my mind. I'm not going to be a professional athlete anymore. I'm going to be a scientist. Plans, not promises, plans. I'm going to be a scientist and help the world fight public health problems. Wait and see. Look at the richness of this text. Yes, it's a pandemic context. Dad is a nurse. His phone broke down. He's wearing his laptop. That's why Katie's writing him an email. And she's telling him, yes, she's telling a story, telling about her life, her plans, and her promises. Well, and when we get to the activities, we say, what's the context of the email? See, so it's culturally situated. Yes, the genre is considered in the sphere of use. It's not just an email in a textbook. It has a reason to be. And then comprehension questions, okay? Read the email again, check the promises. Look, I'm not saying, oh, please find the will construction, will for the future construction. No, check the promises. And then this chapter or this unit, it's about extraordinary people. So instead of having famous people, yes, oh, if you open textbooks, what do you have? Famous people. That's a famous people. Famous person here, famous person there, famous person there. Yes, we don't need famous people in textbooks. They already have their space in the media. what we need in textbooks is people we can relate to. So think. Do you think Katie's dad is an extraordinary person? Look, he's a nurse. He's away from his family. He has to sleep in a hotel or at the hospital, whatever, but he's not going home. Dad, when are you going to come home? Is he an extraordinary person? Do you think Katie is an extraordinary person? Are we going through this pandemic? Are we extraordinary people? Why? There's always this why. Why not? And how did you get to that conclusion? So this, people, is developing critical thinking, right? Look, time's up. I think, it's been 5 minutes already. Back again, just, resuming the BNCC. Why are we doing all this, people? Remember, from the BNCC, we need to transform our society into something increasingly fair, democratic, inclusive. Yes, sustainable, not only environmentally, but socially sustainable. And our students need to be part of this wide world, right? And why are we doing this? Because we want to build brighter futures together. That's what we do. That's why we exist. And that's Better Learning by Cambridge University Press. Okay, guys, look, I couldn't be more thankful. I thank you very much. We have, some participants have already gone, but we still have almost 200 people in the room. I really, really appreciate this. You made my day. I hope I could be of a little value to you. If there's a call to action there for my website. There's the executive preview. I tried to have this in the button, and I wasn't able to do that. But look, there's an executive review of Game Changer at bit.ly/Game Changer exact review. I suggest you print screen because it's not clickable, but you can print the screen so you can visit the executive review of Game Changer, right, people? And I just thank you very much. And here are my contacts for you. You have my email at www.padumachado.net. My email is padu@padumachado.net, and my phone number is over here for you if you want to get in contact with me. I would be most pleased to exchange experience with these wonderful teachers that have attended this webinar. Thank you so much, people, and I hope to see you next time. All right? Have a great week. Take care.